Glory to Jesus Christ. So today is a day of great rejoicing. And of course, it's not just because England just beat Iran in the World Cup. Today we celebrate the feast of the entrance of the Theotokos into the temple. And here we can see the Theotokos in the icon as a 3-year-old girl. How beautiful is that? I have 3 daughters, but none of them will ever be that beautiful. Because true human beauty is to completely follow God's plan for us. And our Blessed Mother is the one who shows us how to begin to do that. And that's what we celebrate today. One of my most joyful afternoons in an archaeological library was when I realized that this library had a photograph from a series of volumes published somewhere in Germany at the turn of the last century of what the Ethiopians claim is possibly the Ark of the Covenant. And then I realized that in another part of the library, there was a translation of an Armenian author who wrote in the 13th century describing the very same thing in Ethiopia. And because the library was so good, I was able to get both of these volumes, put them down side by side, look at this ancient photograph, and look at this even more ancient description. And the amazing thing was that it kind of matched. Until I studied the photograph with a magnifying glass and realized that what I was looking at was actually something covered with a veil. So who knows if the Ethiopians really have the Ark of the Covenant where they say they do in Aksum. But if you want to look at the Ark of the Covenant, you don't have to look very far. Just look in this direction. Look behind the holy table. And here is the Ark of the Covenant. We call her the Mother of God, but wider than the heavens. Wider than the heavens, because she contains God Himself, the one who is the Lord. These are not the Greek symbols that mean Jesus Christos. These are the symbols that remind us that Jesus Christ is God Himself. And Mary as the Ark of the Covenant, Mary as the one wider than the heavens, preserved this fundamental truth of the incarnation for us, that Jesus Christ is not just a man, not just a baby, but the creator of the universe, the creator of all things, of the entire cosmos, of all time and all space. And that's why we call her wider than the heavens. So I wanted to just look through some of the hymns of the church, because Eastern Christianity has always held very tightly to an ancient rule of thumb that says in Latin, lex orandi, lex credendi, which means the way, in paraphrase, literally the law of prayer is the law of belief. What that means is the way we worship shows us what we believe in. So if you want to know what Eastern Catholics believe, you've got to worship with us. You've got to hear, see, experience, and read our services. So reading our services is a great way to find out what we believe about this feast. So I went through all the prayers of the church earlier today to find some of the beautiful phrases
in the prayers. And there are many of them. I don't even know where to begin. There are so many of them. But why not with the Tropa? Today is the prelude of the benevolence of God and the herald of the salvation of mankind. For the Virgin openly appears in the temple of God and foretells Christ to all. Let us also with full voice exclaim to her, O faithful, let us leap for joy today. There's so many references to joy in the prayers of the church today. Singing psalms and hymns of praise in honor of Mary, his mother, the holy tabernacle and ark that contained the Word, whom nothing can contain. She is offered to God as a child in a marvelous way, and Zechariah the high priest receives her with great joy, for she is the dwelling place of the Most High God. Later on, we hear, let David greatly rejoice and play on his harp, saying, virgins shall be brought to the king after her. And to find the connection with King David, we have to read one of his psalms. This is Psalm 44 or 45, depending on which Bible you use. And if you keep in mind the tradition of the church, the memory of the church, that the Blessed Mother, as a young maiden, was led into the temple by a procession of maidens carrying candles. Listen to this psalm, which started life as a commemoration of a royal wedding. That's how, in the ancient Near East, rulers brought peace, because they would marry the daughters of neighboring potential rivals, and by marrying their sons or daughters would forge unity and peace. And what peace was forged by this mystical marriage that we hear about today. But listen to this psalm from the Old Testament, and as you listen to it, remember what this feast celebrates. God, your God, this is the prophet, this is David speaking to the king, has anointed you with the oil of gladness more than your companions. Myrrh and cassia pour forth from your garments. There are daughters of kings given in your honor. The queen stood at your right hand in apparel interwoven with gold and adorned and embroidered with various colors. Virtues, as the fathers tell us. Listen, O daughter, behold and incline your ear, and forget your people and your father's house. For the king desired your beauty, for he is your Lord. And the daughters of Tyre, that's the pagans, that's us, shall worship him with gifts. The rich among the people shall entreat your favor. All her glory as the king's daughter is within, adorned and embroidered with golden tassels. The virgins behind her shall be led to the king. Her neighbors shall be brought to you. They shall be brought with gladness and rejoicing. They shall be led into the temple of the king. In place of your fathers, sons shall be born to you. You shall make them rulers over all the earth. They shall remember your name from generation to generation. Where have we heard that before? All generations will call me blessed. Therefore people shall give thanks to you forever and unto ages of ages. Never say that the Old Testament is not relevant to us today. That is why David is still singing in heaven, still singing that psalm, but especially today on this feast day, as that psalm receives its glorious fulfillment, which he probably never even dreamt of, although maybe he did. Today, the Theotokos, the temple that is to contain God, is being escorted into the temple of the Lord. Today, the Holy of Holies greatly rejoices, and the choir of angels mystically celebrates this feast. Let us also celebrate with them today and cry out with Gabriel, "Rejoice, O full of grace. The Lord is with you and grants us great mercy." Carrying lamps, the maidens rejoice and piously escort Mary, the spiritual lamp, into the Holy of Holies. This is a foreshadowing of the splendid light that will shine forth from her, the light that will enlighten all who sit in the darkness of ignorance. Another quote from the Old Testament. Again, light, the theme of light, as well as joy, is throughout these hymns of the church, because the Mother of God contained the light that we wait to come into the world, the light that we celebrate at Christmas coming into our darkness, the light that said himself, "Let there be light," and there was light, and the light that says to all of us in our darkness, "Let there be light," and there is light. Again, joy, Zechariah rejoicing in her and leaping for joy. And then it says that the little Theotokos will dance for joy in the temple of God. Joachim and Anna joyfully celebrate. Follow after her, who is the Mother of God and the mediatrix for the joy of the world, the one who brings us Christ, who is the joy of the world. O all pure Virgin, we know that you are a treasury of wisdom, enlightenment now, and a never-failing fountain of grace. Therefore we entreat you, O Lady, to let some drops of knowledge fall upon us, so that we may sing your praises forever. And the wonderful thing is that the Blessed Mother encourages us to enter too, because now that she has borne the one who is wider than the heavens, because she has borne God himself and brought him to us, we too, at Holy Communion, when we receive Christ, are we not in a very similar way bearing the one who cannot be born? She enlightens us. And she is the gate, as the prayers tell us, the glorious gate through which human thoughts cannot pass, now encourages us to enter with her and to rejoice in her divine wonders, for she has opened the gates of the temple of God. He who sustains all things with his word has in his mercy heard the prayer of the righteous Joachim and Anna. We hear a lot about the prayers of Joachim and Anna. Prayers of parents make a big difference. How could she have been so holy and so prepared and so ready without her father and her mother, who you see standing beside her, celebrating with joy that a little girl who they're probably not going to see for many years is fulfilling the plan of God from before the ages. And it says they celebrate with joy. They are some godly parents that all of us with children that we worry about can pray to. Pray for their intercession, but also remember from their example that the prayer of parents makes a great difference. Or as the Apostle James says, the effectual, fervent prayer of the righteous is very powerful indeed Let us not forget that. O bride of God, when the temple received you as a precious jewel, it shone with beauty and submitted to better things, for it recognized in you the fulfillment of the prophecies. And yes, the temple received and recognized the Theotokos as a jewel. But there are scriptures in the Old Testament which say that we all one day will be God's chosen jewels, God's selected treasures. It says, and you will be mine, says the Lord, on that day when I gather together my jewels. One day through her prayers and through the one that she brought into the world, may all of us be found as jewels in God's sight. A lamp that gives light has been kindled for us and has made the temple shine with joy. O undefiled Theotokos, your soul is radiant with beauty, and you are overflowing with the heavenly graces of God. You always illumine with eternal light those who praise you in joy. There's joy and light again. And we hear these references to Gabriel. And it's said that when the Blessed Mother lived in the Holy of Holies, and remember how holy this was, only the high priest could go in, and then once a year. And in the sanctuary, the Holy of Holies was considered so holy that it was literally dangerous. And when he went in once a year, they tied a rope around his leg in case he died, so that they could pull him out without going in there. But she lived there from the age of 3 until the time of the Annunciation. And it's said that the Archangel Gabriel fed her with bread in the sanctuary. Elijah was mystically fed with bread in the desert. And in the stories of the ancient monastics, especially the desert solitaries, the fathers and the mothers, we hear the same thing, that hermits were miraculously fed with bread by angels. If the Blessed Mother can be miraculously fed, maybe we can too, in whatever way we need to receive food from God. There's more. If you ever want to know more about our feasts, find a copy of the Festal Meneon. It's probably getting harder and harder to find. But the Meneon is the book which has all the changeable parts of our Vesper and Matin services for the feasts of the church. But as a final thought, I wanted to leave you with St. Augustine, talking about a different Mary, the other Mary that we hear in the Gospel, holding tightly to the one thing. Few things are needed, indeed only one. And the Mary of Bethany that we hear of in the Gospel holds tightly to her communion with Christ as the one thing. And that's what this feast day points to. The Blessed Mother in the sanctuary of the temple holds more tightly than any other human being ever has or will do to Jesus Christ. And so St. Augustine says, what was Mary enjoying when she was listening to Jesus? What was she eating? What was she drinking? Do you know? Let us ask the Lord. Blessed, he says, are those who hunger and thirst for holiness, because they shall be satisfied. If you want to be holy, get in touch with your hunger for God. Get in touch with your hunger for God's holy place. You're here. This is God's holy place. But get hold of the hunger in your heart that says, I long, my heart and my flesh long to enter in, long for you, O Lord. Because when we're in church, the church is a physical mock-up of heaven. I could go on and on and on about that, about how the sanctuary reflects ancient Jewish worship that we heard about in the book of Hebrews, about how our temple reflects the kingdom of heaven. Just look at the chandeliers to remind you of the presence of heaven all around you. But we don't have time for all of that. Well, I've lost my place. Here we are. What was Mary enjoying? What was she eating? I'm persistent on this point because I'm enjoying it too, says Augustine. He was being eaten by her because he was the bread who came down from heaven. He is the bread which nourishes and never diminishes. If you want to be holy, get in touch with your hunger for the bread of life, and let your hunger for him be the one thing that when you hold tightly to that, nothing else at all is needed. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to God.